News mornings at 7 a.m. starts right now.
Happy Saturday to you. Thank you so much for joining us. A live look outside from Horsetooth Reservoir. Just gorgeous out there. Really going to be a pretty comfortable weekend in the metro. Good morning. I'm Lauren Scafidi. Always happy to spend part of your weekend with you. Let's send things on over to Senior Weather Impact Meteorologist Chris Bianchi. We're talking about good stuff down here, but up in the high country, a little bit different. Going to be dicey travel this morning.
Yeah, good stuff if you're a skier or a snowboarder, but not good stuff if you're trying to get to those ski slopes up there this morning. This is what it looks like at the Eisenhower Johnson tunnels. And of course, this is 50 miles as the crow flies from downtown Denver, and it's a very different scene from what we're seeing in downtown Denver right now with mostly sunny skies. But in the high country, now the thing to kind of take away from this image, notice the limited visibility. You can barely make out the Loveland ski area off in the distance. That is because of the wind. So it snows all the time in the mountains. You might be going, whoop-de-doo, I'm going to go powder chase. Totally fine, but the difference today is that wind is going to pick up that snow and whip it about. But it did pick up about 2-3 inches of snow overnight at most of the ski areas here in Denver. Very different. 64 for us today, windy and mild. 60s, 70s, Eastern Plains. 30s and 40s in the high country. Red flag warning, fire weather warning covers most of the Denver metro area as well as through southern Colorado as well. That goes into effect at noon, running till 8 p.m. We're seeing that snow in the mountains right now. That'll continue all day long. I'll tell you when that snow comes to a close coming up in my full forecast. Lauren.
Chris, thank you so much. Denver police are looking into potential suspects in an overnight shooting. It happened at the 5200 block of Jackson Drive. The victim was an adult. Police say he had non-life-threatening injuries. We're working to find out more information. We'll let you know as soon as we learn more, both on air and online at 9news.com. Aurora police say a man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries this morning after he was shot in his apartment. Aurora police say the man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. It happened on Adriatic Drive a little after 10:15 last night. Investigators say a downstairs neighbor heard commotion, then went upstairs where they found the man with a gunshot wound. He was rushed to the hospital. No suspect information this morning. If you know anything about this case, Aurora police want to hear from you. Today marks 2 years since a student opened fire on 2 staff members at East High School, and one of those shooting survivors is now suing Denver Public Schools, claiming the district failed to keep him safe. In 2023, former Dean Wayne Mason was shot multiple times by a student who was required to be patted down for weapons as a part of his safety plan. The lawsuit says it was a foreseeable act of violence that could have been avoided. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez has the details.
Anyone who claims that a school shooting is no longer reasonably foreseeable has their head in the sand.
In 2023, a 17-year-old student at East High shot Wayne Mason and Eric Sinclair, both deans at the time. They survived. A new lawsuit Wayne filed says the shooting could have been prevented. It points out the shooter was expelled from another school for trying to sell a gun, and says when he enrolled at East High 2 months before the shooting, DPS put him on a safety plan. As part of that plan, he had to undergo verbal check-ins before school every day. According to the lawsuit, that was changed to mandatory searches days before the shooting because he was spotted with a gun.
Up until 2015, school districts were essentially immune from suit, no matter what lack of reasonable care they exercised.
In 2015, Colorado passed the Claire Davis School Safety Act, requiring school districts to protect students and staff from reasonably foreseeable violence like school shootings. 9 News legal analyst Scott Robinson explains.
But you have to show a failure to exercise reasonable care for a danger that was reasonably foreseeable under the circumstances of this particular case.
In this case, the lawsuit argues that Denver Public Schools did not provide administrators with adequate training on how to search and pat down students.
But the failure to conduct adequate searches is a pretty substantial basis for the claim.
In a statement, Mason's lawyer says the lawsuit will make everyone safer by holding school officials accountable. Robinson hopes the Claire Davis School Safety Act will help schools prevent future acts of violence.
Now schools are locking the doors, number 1. You have to check in, number 2. And number 3, they do training.
That was Colton Chavez reporting. We reached out to Denver Public Schools for comment. They told us they cannot comment on pending litigation. Some books that have been off of library shelves for a few months will make their way back in a few days. Last August, the Elizabeth School Board announced it would pull 19 books from the school library shelves, and about 100 more would go on a sensitive books list. They included books mentioning the LGBTQ community, religious views, drug use, profanity, or sexual content. A high schooler sued with the help of the ACLU, NAACP, and Authors Guild. They argued the book removals were unconstitutional censorship. This past week, a judge ordered the district to return those books to libraries by next week, at least while the case continues in court. The district has argued the removals are not a ban and came after a thorough review by school staff and district parents. They plan to appeal. The city of Denver's new ban on flavored tobacco started this week, but gas stations and vape shops say that they are not taking those products off the shelves. City Council and the mayor passed the ban in December, but they're still trying to figure out exactly how to enforce it.
So we're in the educational phase right now. So we're developing our resources, and so that way we can officially mail out. We've been trying to notify retailers via our website, the bulletin that they receive. So really trying to educate them as much as we can.
The city will not start what they're calling soft enforcement until July. That's a written warning with no fine. Then on January 1st, 2026, the city will start handing out fines. Gas station and vape shop owners are now petitioning to let Denver voters weigh in on the ban in the November election. The clerk and recorder's office says it's still verifying if they got enough signatures to make the ballot. The Secretary of State's office is out with new numbers to share with you. Nearly 2,600 incarcerated Coloradans voted in the last presidential election. It's a big deal because that was the first general election since a new state law took effect. It requires jails to hold at least one day of in-person voting. Inmates serving time for felony convictions are not allowed to cast a ballot, but it is legal for people awaiting trial or serving time for misdemeanors to vote. The Secretary of State's office says nearly half of the eligible inmates at the time turned in a ballot. Yes, sir. A federal judge says a prominent immigration advocate in Colorado who was detained by ICE this week cannot be deported right now. That judge issued an order yesterday halting the deportation of Jeanette Vizquera until her case can be heard. ICE detained Jeanette on Monday outside the Denver area Target where she works. The mother of four has been fighting deportation since 2009 when she was pulled over during a traffic stop. Since then, the 53-year-old has been convicted of misdemeanors for entering the country without permission and forged documents. Oral arguments in her case have been set for March 28th. Meanwhile, one of two men who escaped from the ICE detention facility in Aurora during a power outage on Tuesday is back in custody. ICE says the Adams County Sheriff's Office helped them find and arrest 32-year-old Joel Gonzalez. But at a hearing yesterday, a public defender claimed Gonzalez called authorities to turn himself in and then wanted to give up information on the other escapee to get himself out of trouble. ICE is still searching for Vito Romero Guayland Jose. They say that the 24-year-old also escaped after the power went out. That allowed the men to walk through unlocked doors and climb a fence, escaping the facility.